Hello and welcome back. Today we're going to be looking at what I call WPO stickers. Today we're going to be doing something, I wouldn't necessarily say it's advanced, but it can have some very advanced applications. Let's say that I am a human being and we are painting some foliage. And as an example, let me just get, you know, these sticks. We go to our foliage mode. We put the sticks in there. And we want to put sticks here. Wow, it looks amazing. Except that you can see that they're kind of going everywhere. It's not beautiful. Now, obviously for something like sticks, it's not the biggest deal because sticks are sticky, but if we instead cover this rock in leaves, then you can see that, again, we get these weird, floating leaves. It's all a bit of a nightmare because that's not how leaves work in real life. Another example would be, we have a rug or something, or like a blanket, and we want to smack it down, bam. And it's like, this sucks. The way that we're going to be solving this multitude of issues is going to be using world position offset in combination with a runtime virtual texture height map and or distance fields. So first, let's go over the sort of theory. So to start off with, let's say that we have an RVT height map. Which is basically just, a texture that says how high our surface is. And it's saying at any given XY coordinate, this is the Z coordinate. So let's say we've got our rug and we place it down in the world and it's, it's stiff and it's sticking out and looks terrible. What we can do is we can get the height of each of these verts, also called world position in our shader graph. And we can subtract it from the RVT height. So let's say this point is at 10, and our rug is, at this point, is like at 50 units or something. So by subtracting this by this, we are going to be left with negative 40. So this 10 minus 50 is negative 40. So then all we need to do is apply that negative 40 to the height of the vertex, and it will essentially snap to our landscape. Now, obviously, this would mean that all of the meshes are going to be completely, like flat, which, we may not want because, our carpet might have, like, little crinkles in it that are geometry-based. So we will go over how we, can alleviate that problem. Alrighty, so we've got these rocks here. Now, obviously, with landscapes and stuff, landscapes are sort of only half a solution, and, you'll be supplementing your landscape with a bunch of meshes. You might have, like, interiors that have stuff and whatnot. So let's just print this to our height map. So we're going to get world position here, Z, world height, save, minimize, go to this, draw to our runtime virtual texture, which is going to be our prismatic landscape height. If you don't know how to set up and use a runtime virtual texture, I do have some videos about runtime virtual textures. All we need to know is that we are drawing this to our height map. Now, in our rug, what we need to do is we are going to be snapping this bad boy to the ground. So let's get our runtime virtual texture sample, and we are going to sample that same one from before, the prismatic landscape height. Then we're going to get our world height. We're going to subtract the Z height of the verts of this mesh. And then we are going to put this into a make float 3 because we only want it to affect the Z position. And then we go into the world position offset. We click save, and now you can see that there are some points where, it's not high resolution enough to actually deform to it 100%. So we can just create an offset into our thingo until it looks, you know, just about right. Now, one problem that we're facing is that this mesh, before we, you know, destroyed it with world position offset, had some geometry to it. It had some stuff going on. It had it going on. So in order to preserve our geometry, instead of comparing against the world position of the mesh, which is the Z height of every individual vertex, first we're going to just compare against the pivot point, which means when we select the object, this is going to be like the Z height of this mesh. And then we're essentially just going to be like, okay, well, compared to this point, how much do we need to move it down? And that will preserve all of our, you know, our Z-ward geometry. So if we get this, we mask, component mask, B, and we put that into here instead. Actually, you know what, let me plug this back in first. So it's all, you know, squished. But now if we use this instead of the world position, we now have all of our nice geometry back. So as you can see, if I full screen, as we start moving this rug around, it will deform better to the geometry. Now, obviously, you know, for really steep angles, it's obviously not ideal. We're going to get some leakage. Yeah, you get the sort of gist of it. Now, one other thing you'll need to keep in mind is collision is just out the window. Don't even bother with collision, you know, if you're using this technique for anything. You'll also want to disable distance field shadows because, as you can see here, the real object is up here. And so, you know, the distance field shadows that it is casting correlate to where the real mesh is, not where the WPO is. One other limitation of this is that the normals are going to be incorrect because WPO doesn't account for normals. So if we go to our buffer visualization, we go to the world normal, you can see that even though this should be, you know, really steep, here's a good example. You know, this should be pink. It is instead this color. But again, there are ways we can sort of get around that. Now, this rug is a really extreme example because, you know, it has to conform perfectly, and it is one, you know, big mesh, and it has like a, you know, a surface that we'd expect to stay intact. However, if we were to do something like leaves, which are, you know, they're more scattered, leaves are probably a better example for this effect to really, you know, to utilize. So let's go to our material. We're going to yeet that on the leaves. We're going to go to here and go to fallen leaves texture. We're going to do my little normal doodad. We're going to chuck you in there. Our leaves are going to be leaf colored. Maybe they'll be dead leaf colored or like autumn leaf colored. We chuck that on. Very good. That looks fantastic. I'm pretty sure, yeah, that has an alpha. We're going to put that in the opacity mask. We go to the masked fella. That's the wrong leaf texture. I think it's the oak leaves. Jesus. Nope, that's not it. I am... Is it you? Hey, there we go, there we go. Okay, so we've got our leaves. And now we're going to apply this little trick right here to our leaves. You could turn this into a material function, but I cannot be bothered for the sake of this video. We can just paint leaves everywhere. And you can see that we are running into an issue still with the sort of, with the leaves sticking out everywhere. That's because we are doing the align to normal with our foliage painting. Now, because we're relying on the pivot point, we don't want our mesh to tilt in any sort of way. It has to be a flat mesh. So now when we do this, it would help if I could actually get... Oh, fuck's sake. Well, that's a great example. Let's just do that. There we go. So now you can see with a more suitable mesh like leaves and stuff, the leaves are perfectly conforming to the shape of our rock. And if we go over to here to some more rough terrain and stuff, you can see we get some nice leaf stickery, as we might call it. Now, it looks a lot better with the leaves because, leaves aren't one solid mesh. So you do kind of get artifacts of it doesn't perfectly cover the sides of steep bits, but that almost just makes it look more realistic. Now, you will just have to be careful of extreme stretching like this. It's kind of unavoidable, so just don't place the meshes there. That one's on you. Now, let's compare to without the shader effect. Pretty shit example because we didn't have them aligned to the mesh. So to be fair, let's go back to the foliage mode and switch on align to normal. So you can see now with just, aligning it to normal, we have leaves floating around everywhere. It almost looks more like bushes, which isn't what the mesh is supposed to represent. And then if we go back to here and turn the effect on, we have some beautiful leafses that are conforming much better to our geometry. Now, obviously, we could introduce those sticks as well. Now, you can see that the leaves are sort of overriding the sticks. So one thing we could do, just for a bit of fun, is to add some noise to, the height of the sticks after we've snapped them to the position. So we could just grab a noise texture. We can world align it. Tiling size of 1000. Why not? Chuck it in there. Get one of the channels. Multiply it by some number. 10 or something. And then add that. Or maybe we'll just do that instead of this offset here. And so that would just introduce some world space noise to the world position offset. That's probably a bit too much. There we go. Some beautiful... what do you call this? Ground coverage. Forest ground coverage. Looks pretty solid, if I does say so myself. Very cool, very cool. Now, another cool benefit is if we add more geometry, for example, we start putting down more rocks, we don't have to, replace our meshes and stuff. We just have unlimited creativity, which is always good. It's always good to be as lazy as possible when it comes to anything game dev related. This is all well and good, but this is only for, things in this direction, in the up and the down direction. For something like, what are these called again? Vines, we would need to rely on distance fields instead. Now, distance fields are a bit funkier, but also offer us 2 extra dimensions to the effect compared to this. All right, so here we have our huge big vines, multi-mesh. Again, this isn't ideal. You definitely want to use smaller meshes, but just for the sake of it and the example, we are using the distance field nodes. I do have a distance fields video. I've got 2 of them actually. So go and check them out if you're not really sure, what the hell's going on. But we can get the distance to nearest surface. We're going to multiply this by -1 because if we are 500 units away, we want to move -500 units compared to the normals of the distance field. So this is the distance field gradient. You can normalize this, but you can get some weird results. I prefer to multiply it by 100 and then clamp -1 to 1. We will switch between these, different blokes, different strokes. I don't know what the fucking phrase is. Anyway, so then we're going to multiply our gradient or multiply our, distance field normals by the distance. Then we're going to get the normals and just multiply that by some number to produce an offset, which we then add to the thinger. So without the offset, let's just set that to 0 actually. When we plug this into the world position offset, and this is world position offset in all 3, dimensions, you can see that it's sort of stuck inside the mesh. Not ideal, but that's where this offset comes in handy. So we can just doodle with this until, bam, go to like 35. Looks pretty good. There you go. You can see that our huge vine mesh is now conforming closelier to our cliff mesh. As we start moving this around, you'll kind of see where the sweet spot is to have it placed. It's usually right on the mesh. Now let's also compare this with using normalize instead of multiply. Again, not much different. So this sort of reveals to us one of the downsides of using the distance fields rather than using a, runtime virtual texture. And that is that the distance fields, or WPO that is affected by distance fields, doesn't affect the shadow pass if you're using, cascade shadow maps. It might not even work with virtual shadow maps, but I'm not sure. You'd have to test it out yourself. In the shadow pass, this is casting a shadow as though no world position offset has been applied. And you can see that because it's casting a shadow on itself. So this is one of the reasons that using smaller meshes would be advised. So let's actually just see what that looks like first. We're going to get this IV here, IV number 2. I have oriented this in a particular way so that it's placeable with the foliage tool. Oh, here it is, ground slope angle. We want the max to be like 90 degrees. Even more than 90 degrees. So like 180 even. But I think 180 breaks it. But we do want to be able to put it, underneath stuff. So put that to 170. And then, it's better to do like singles with this kind of thing rather than like, a huge batch of it, because you can get it in places that you don't really want it. And then if we change the material, so now we've got our distance field sticker material on it. We're going to adjust the offset. Maybe to, what was it before? Like 35. We can probably get away with like 25 now. Obviously, you'd want to have this on as you are painting it, just so you don't get any like weird artifacts like that. Okay, so there we have it. That is our distance field mesh WPO sticker effect. You can see that all of our vines and stuff are closely sticking to our cliffside. And if we disable the effect, you can see what it would look like without. Yeah, you can see that, this is sticking out. It looks really stiff. It's not very natural. So something that we came up with on stream the other day when we were experimenting with trees and stuff is this little effect here where, a tree falls over, and then as the leaves pass under the, the runtime virtual texture height map, they start to stick. They start to do the sticking. So, obviously if this tree fell down, then all of the leaves just get splattered, which is a really cool effect, especially, if you simulate physics on it or something. Another little bonus is you can kind of just make really cheap, like, ground debris by just flipping a tree upside down. It's a little bit finicky, but I thought it was kind of funny how simple it was to just get some ripper ground coverage. So the way this is achieved is by using a material function that I made, which essentially does the exact same thing as our leaves and our sticks, from earlier in the video, except the difference is that we clamp the positive values to 0, and we only apply our correction when it dips below the height map. So, if this was all below here, it's gonna put itself up, and if it is above, it's not gonna do anything. And it will also work with, you know, uneven terrain and whatnot. I might do a distance field version of this, particularly for things like houses and, you know, like if a tree falls on a house or, you know, is like against a cliff or something, you know, we'd want it to squish. But again, distance fields are a little bit more finicky and they also frick up the shadows, so it might not even be worth it to do it like that. But anyway, that's just something that I wanted to show off because it uses this same effect. So that's going to be it for the video. I hope that you learned something useful. I hope this comes in handy when you're doing, like, you know, your level design and your environment stuff. Make sure you like and subscribe and all that blah blah blah. If you do want to support monetarily, you can do so through Patreon for as little as $1 per month. Big shout out to all of the existing patrons. You guys are thumbs. You guys are thumbs up. And with that, we say goodbye. Goodbye.